Three, two, one, and let's get started. So today is Wednesday, December the 3rd, and today we will be discussing what's happening in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. So there's been a lot of developments on that. I'm sure you guys are gonna be delighted to hear what's going on there. Obviously, they want us to go to war, but a little bit more details on that. We've got the latest on the U.S.-Russia negotiations. So um, that's important. And then why the European Union and the NATO rhetoric suddenly became more aggressive just as we're going into the peace talks, peace deals. It's almost like we're playing a movie on repeat over and over again. Trump's administration, they try to go in, have some peace talks with Putin, and it's hard. These negotiations are very hard. And then you have Zelensky and the European Union, just the whole world, basically, almost the whole Western Hemisphere, just trying to ruin these peace talks. They don't want peace, and who are these people that are don't want peace? Well, you guys can imagine who's lobbying. Obviously, we've got the military-industrial complex that doesn't want peace. We've got a few people that are invested in those companies as well. So just follow the money, and you'll start seeing where everything is coming from, really. So uh, aside from that, we've also got new corruption scandals inside the EU. And what we're going to talk about what all this means for global security moving forward. So stick around, guys. All right. So on the first article, we've got Putin warns Europe: if you want war, then Russia will defeat you. Obviously, we've got Reuters here, basically paraphrasing this, but quote unquote, Russia has no intention of fighting Europe, but if Europe wants it and starts it, we are ready right now. And we know they're ready right now because they're already fighting a war. So it's only a matter of ramping up those the production of weapons on our side. On the U.S. From a U.S. perspective, from a European perspective, it's a little different. I mean, the European Union barely even wants to meet their basic military spending quota that the U.S. has put for them. I think it's like 5%, and we all know from the latest Trump tweets that Spain didn't meet that. Trump wasn't happy about that. Nobody's happy about that. But there's all this talk about war, and they can't even meet their minimum quota. So there's that. But anyway, let me pull up. Let me pull up the story here. So he also emphasized that the war in Ukraine has been, in his words, surgical. That was a war with Europe. A war with Europe would be far more destructive. So, yes, absolutely. I mean, we've already Putin hates that he had to fight Ukraine. I think historically Ukraine has been part of the Soviet Union, and obviously the Russians and the Ukrainians have very similar cultural backgrounds. So it's devastating to see that the amount of Ukrainian soldiers that have died really for nothing, really, because I mean, Ukraine is losing the battle. It's pretty much lost. And even though we're still seeing a lot of Western media saying that we should still go on with this and whatnot. So he's just stating, if we go to war with Europe, then obviously it's going to be much more devastating. I mean, they want to send us to war. They want to keep everything they already took from Russia. Everything they seized, the billions and billions of dollars. Macron wants to keep that. And then also, obviously, they want to take some of that land, right, where they have those what do they call them, rare earth minerals, right? So obviously, Trump is a businessman. He's after that. We all know that. But then there's the European Union, who's basically in an economic downward spiral. So they also want a part of that pie, right? And they're being excluded from those negotiations. So that's why they're a little upset. But anyways, moving on. So this message that Putin made was partly directed at the European leaders, of course, who have recently talked about preemptive actions against Russia. Preemptive actions, right? Yeah, right. Putin mocked that rhetoric and essentially warned that the direct Russia-Europe conflict would escalate far beyond anything happening in Ukraine right now. And it's obvious. I mean, we can all see how that would be devastating for the world, really. And we've seen it already in the first two world wars. And then a quick note: Serbia's President Vucic, I think is how you spell it, how you pronounce it, issued a similar warning that NATO preemptive strike could trigger Russian nuclear response. Absolutely. I mean, every day we're pretty close to a nuclear exchange, really. So, yeah, I mean, they really just want us to go to war. I'll leave this link from Reuters. You guys can go through this article and make your own opinions, make your own assumptions from that. So, moving on, Putin meets Witikoff and Kushner over 4 hours to discuss Ukraine peace. Okay, well, I'm not a big fan of Kushner, but you know, if the Trump administration is making good use of him and sending him to negotiate, then so be it, right? So, according to certain sources, this was a secretive U.S.-Russia peace talk. So secretive, except everybody knows about it now, right? So right when this rhetoric was heating up, there was also major diplomatic development, right? So this meeting's happening, and it's happening in Moscow, and it lasted 5 hours, which is crazy, right? Some sources say 4, some sources say 5, and they presented a 27-point peace plan with 4 additional documents attached. So basically, showed up with a book. They're trying to, put together the details of how to negotiate this, but personally, I don't think it's gonna get very far. I don't think anyone on the West, all the leaders on the West, except for maybe Trump, I don't think any of them want peace. Like I said, Macron wants to keep the billions they already took from Putin, and yeah, I mean they need it for their economy. So I don't see how the war stops, and I think Putin knows. So a top Kremlin aide, Yuri Ishakov, said the discussion was constructive. Sure, of course, he has to say that, right? And focus on the essence and not the details. So he's saying they focus on the main points and not on the details. Okay, sure. Some points, he said, were acceptable, but the main issue, territory, remains unresolved. So obviously, I work with contracts. I do negotiations myself, and yeah, I mean, the details are not as important as the main idea, right? And he pointed that out. It's obviously land, right? What are we doing with the land? Like I said, Trump wants that land for the rare earth minerals. He wants to do business, and then you've got other parties that also want it, but they don't want it peacefully, and that's the issue here. So. Russia insists on keeping the areas it currently occupies, and Ukraine absolutely refuses. So, same story, same thing. It's just a movie on replay, like I said. Nothing new here. So, the core of the stalemate. Another important detail. Europe is being excluded from negotiations. Yeah, you guys know what I think about that. Russia openly stated that Europe has no role, partly because Russian officials believe Europe or Zelensky would sabotage the process. Absolutely, absolutely. They've been sabotaging the whole thing. They've been sabotaging it. That's why they try to have a secretive meeting. Apparently, it didn't work for them. But Senator Marco Rubio reinforced this dynamic on Fox News by saying only the United States can talk to both sides. That's right. That's because we are the ones that can stop this war. And I'm not personally a fan of Marco Rubio specifically, but I think it's a good statement. I think everybody knows that's why Trump doesn't take the EU too seriously. Just so they're like a kid. They're like the kid, right? That they want to throw a fit, and you just tell them to stay in the corner and listen to what adults have to say about this, right? So and then the next story here, I don't have an article for, but basically China joins the diplomatic moment. So while these negotiations are happening in Moscow, there was also China Foreign Minister Wang Yi, who was also meeting with the Russian's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov at the exact same time. What are the chances of that happening in parallel? So this suggests that a global effort was underway to push negotiation forward, right? So obviously China is would be siding with Russia if this war escalates, and they don't want war. I think they're doing pretty well without war. They're beating us on the economic side of things. They're producing so much, so they don't want the war. They want peace. They want to keep beating us in the economic realm, and that's convenient for them. Obviously, for us, it might not be so convenient, depending on how you see things. But we can also. I think peace is the only way. Peace and competition through different means is the only way to get through this. So anyway, that's the story for China. And moving on, let me close this screen real quick. Moving on, Ukraine naval drones strike 2 Russian oil tankers in the Black Sea. So this is from the Guardian. And so again, we have all these peace talks, and then Ukraine strikes Russian oil tankers in the Black. I mean, this is not even funny anymore. We've been seeing this. We've been seeing this so much. I mean, this is every time there's some sort of peace deal, some sort of peace talks, it's like, boom, let's just crush it. The Ukrainians want to crush it. The Europeans want to crush it. Everyone except the Trump administration, and that's very unfortunate, really. So, escalation at sea. Ukraine targets Russian tankers. Now, while these diplomatic efforts were happening, a major escalation occurred in the Black Sea. Ukrainian naval drones struck 2 Russian oil tankers belonging to what Western governments call Russian Shadow Fleet. So, according to The Guardian, these tankers were used to bypass sanctions, and both were damaged in the attack. Of course, they're going to say they were used to bypass sanctions, but really, nobody knows. I mean, yeah, we have those sanctions on them, but I mean, so what, right? I mean, we're trying to find some peace in this war, right? We're trying to make a deal, and we're gonna go ahead and bomb their tankers while we're talking to them about peace. That's hilarious. And obviously Putin didn't like that. He called them acts of piracy, right? That's also stupid to say. I mean, whatever. He's calling them criminals, right? Yeah, I kind of agree with him, I guess, but also I don't know, it doesn't make any doesn't calling them pirates doesn't really change much. So he then warned that Russia might hit Ukrainian ports more extensively. So he's saying we're going to retaliate, and they might even cut off Ukraine from the Black Sea. So that's specifically referencing Odessa. So that's one of their major cities. If you guys don't know, I'm sure you guys know. But anyways, these negotiations were quietly progressing, and the situation on the ground, and especially at sea, actually became very dangerous. So there you guys have it. Again, like I said, it's a movie on repeat. They don't want they want to escalate things. They don't want any peace. But moving on. And if you guys want a link to these articles, I can definitely send them or post them under the video. But basically, this one also reiterates what Putin was saying about hitting those major ports in Ukraine and attack to retaliate on the attack of the tankers. So, all right, next story: NATO and EU rhetoric suddenly escalates. So again, going back to the same story, right? So we want peace. Not really. The EU doesn't want peace. They want to go to war, but they don't have the means. They want the US to go to war, and they not just that. It's a young people. I'm 29. I'd probably go to war at some point. I have younger brothers, I have younger cousins, and obviously I know you guys watching here. You don't want your kids, you don't want to go yourselves to war for what really? And we've seen it happen already with the Ukrainians, right? There was no real point in all those deaths. You know, they destroyed a whole generation of Ukrainians, and they're still picking up people in the streets. I mean, some people say that's propaganda. You know, those are videos are fake. Blah blah blah. Sure, there might be, they might not be. Who knows? But we do know that Ukraine is losing bad. They're getting encircled in a lot of areas in Ukraine, and the soldiers are just a lot of them are just giving up. So there you have it. So let's go to this story. While the U.S. and Russia were inching towards the outline of a deal, NATO and European officials sharply increased their military rhetoric. So again, we're going through all these peace talks, and the EU is like, nah, we're going to quote unquote, peace can only be achieved through military means. Okay, sure, man. Go and produce some weapons, and then let us know how that goes for you, right? Proposals for preemptive strikes. They also mentioned expand military readiness across Europe. Nice, nice. That goes well for peace talks. They also called for major new war game simulations. That's hilarious. Okay, and then some of the other EU politicians openly entertaining mandatory military service. See, that's what I'm talking about, guys. That's what I'm scared of, and not necessarily scared for myself, but there's a lot of waste in those wars, and we've seen it in the past. I don't agree with that, but anyways, that's how the EU has been trying to sabotage the peace talks. Political Bloomberg and the Telegraph all ran pieces discussing Europe preparing for war scenarios, including simulations where the U.S. does not provide major support. So they're already talking. If they're already saying if the U.S. wants peace, we're going to exclude them and we're going to war on our own, because they already know the U.S. is going to support them anyways. We have to support them at some point. So they're just trying to drag us into war, really. And then a quick note here, Romania in particular was highlighted as a new potential frontline zone in several reports from Politico and Bloomberg. So now they're saying, well, if the front line has to be Romania, then Romania it will be. I don't like that. I like Romania, very Christian country. I don't want them to die. That's gonna be. I mean, if you guys remember the history in World War II, Poland got crushed. That was where the forces, the Red Army came in and the Soviet army came in and fought the Germans, and it was a disaster. I mean, Poland was basically rebuilt completely, and that's what would happen in Romania. I don't want that. I think that's crazy talk. Shouldn't even be mentioned. That's crazy. So the timing is notable. This sudden militaristic shift aligns almost exactly with the period when a US-Russia peace framework was reportedly 90% complete. So absolutely, they wait until the last minute when we're negotiating, and you know what? We're not gonna have peace here. That's basically what they're saying. So some commentators have argued that certain European leaders may actually prefer escalation over a negotiated settlement. Well, no, of course they do. I mean, who are these politicians? We need to check their investments. We need to check where and what they're invested in, because I'm not liking this. It almost sounds like they're working for the military-industrial complex. That's what it sounds like to me. And actually, here is the article in case you guys want to go look it up. Foreign EU. Excuse me, no, we're not there yet. Actually, this is the next story. So, moving on to the next story, major EU corruption scandal. So, former EU foreign policy chief Mogherini accused of fraud and corruption. So, of course, absolutely. You guys can go ahead and look through this article, but I'll give you the main points here. At the same, so former EU policy chief Federica Montgomery and former EU Secretary General Stefano Sannino were detained in Belgium over allegations of rigging tenders, abusing EU funds, and corruption connected to an expansion of the College of Europe. What is that? What are you abusing EU funds, rigging tenders, College of Europe? What is all this stuff? So it sounds to me like okay, let's keep reading this, and I think you guys are gonna make a conclusion of your own first before I give you mine. But this scandal landed right as the EU was pressuring Belgium to release or seize 140 billion in frozen Russian assets. So there you have it. There you have it. So basically, these people that were arrested for corruption, they are members of the EU, and they were coming to Belgium where they were coming to Belgium to speak to the leaders in Belgium and let them know that they to put some pressure on them to have the seized assets released, the Russian seized assets released, and they didn't like it. The leaders in Europe didn't like that, in the European Union, and they basically accused them of fraud and corruption. Whether it's true or not, we'll never know. But basically, it's a warning to them to let them know to stay in line. Better not get offline here. So Belgium refused to release the seized Russian assets. Absolutely, of course they did. They quote they mentioned that this could violate international law, which is BS. They also said it could collapse the Euro clear financial infrastructure. That is true. It could collapse their economy because they've probably been using these seized assets. Who knows? And it could destabilize EU markets. That's what they said. So obviously, the European Union is in economic trouble, and this is their only way out. These seized assets. The EU even floated bypassing the usual requirement for unanimous approval before declaring an existential threat. Existential emergency. Okay. Basically, Belgium said no. The US told Europe to slow down, warning that a future peace deal may require returning the funds. So basically, the Trump administration told Europe, wait a minute, like don't release those funds just yet because they're part of the negotiation deal. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think the point is clear. Trump wants to negotiate. He wants to stop that war. He knows it's not winnable, at least without not a big loss of a human life. And the EU, those leaders, for whatever reason, I don't know if they're colluding with the what do you call them, the weapons manufacturing industry, or I don't know, somebody's paying them off, and they could be spewing all this militaristic nonsense. But anyways, moving on to the next story. This one's going to catch you guys off guard. It's a little closer to our part of the world, but Canada, unexpected involvement. So this is an odd twist. Canada joined a European defense funding initiative worth over 150 billion. So to all my Canadians out there, let me know how you feel about this. For me personally, from my perspective, I think I've heard a lot about Canadians complaining about the economy, complaining about how they can't afford a house, and very similar to the U.S. really, but a little bit worse, I think. And I think this doesn't sit well, just because there's a lot of need for that money domestically, and they're sending it abroad, and especially Canada. I mean, what does Canada have anything to do with all of this, right? It's kind of like I don't know. So anyways, critics in Canada question why their country, thousands of kilometers away, is now financially tied into a potential European war posture. Absolutely. I mean, what is Canada? Canada's like a very peaceful country. They're like there, on the side. Like, why are they involved in this? This added the perception that the West is preparing for an escalation rather than diplomacy, right? So we've got Trump trying to have some peace deal, and everyone else sabotaging it. Everywhere else in the world, basically the whole West, trying to sabotage that. And well, you guys let me know what you think in the comments. I mean, for me, it's pretty obvious. Like I said, this is a movie being replayed over and over again until Putin finishes taking all of Ukraine. That's he's going slow, like he said, it's surgically, but he's there, and he's going to probably keep advancing. They're advancing at a tremendous speed now. Um, so you guys let me know what you think in the comments. Leave a like, subscribe, and keep you guys posted tomorrow. Please go ahead and watch my video. I'll be probably recording around I don't know, 4 p.m. around that time. I'm in Texas, so that's Central Time. But anyways, peace. See you guys.